Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be a bit more positive, and today we're going to talk about the future of Celtic Football Club. Yes, it's an ambitious thought in my mind that we're going to talk about today, but we're still going to do it. I'm quite annoyed at the amount of comments I get on my videos like, oh, why do you think that Eddie Howe's the answer? Why do you think Eddie Howe's going to turn this around? What gives you the faith? I just kind of think, why would I not think Eddie Howe's the answer? Look, I'm going to make a video here now. We're going to go through 5 reasons Eddie Howe is the perfect man for the job at Celtic. The reason why he is the, I feel like the second coming of Brendan Rodgers in a way. Look, this man, and I don't mean like a snake, but this man is a brilliant manager, and that is very easy to see, and I'm going to explain why in this video. Before we go any further with the video, make sure to check out the top line of the description and download the OneFootball app. The OneFootball app, of course, has of course been helping out the channel over the past couple of months, and you can download the app to keep up to date with everything happening in the football world. Just in the one place, football news, live scores, lineup alerts, anything that you need, all there. So using my link, you're helping both me and the channel sponsors out, so make sure to check that out in the top line of the description. Now, I realise I have picked the complete wrong day to do this video because Rafa Benitez has stepped down from his role as a manager of whatever team it was in China. He's took a massive step down there in terms of money. A lot of people are getting their hopes up that it could be an indication that he's on his way to Parkhead. Right, look, I love Rafa Benitez. I think he's a great manager, and either way, if Eddie Howe or Rafa Benitez in a perfect world were to become the next Celtic manager, I wouldn't complain. But I'm going to make my case here why I think Eddie Howe is the right man. I wouldn't turn back Rafa though, not in a million years. So before I get a huge line of comments saying, oh, Rafa quit today, I know, but this is my video on why Eddie Howe is the man for the job. So reason number one, his record. Like, that's the easiest place to start. His achievements, his record as a manager, what he done with Bournemouth. I'm sick of seeing the same comments going, oh, I don't know why you think Howe's the right man for the job. The man took Bournemouth from League 2 in England to the Premier League in consecutive seasons, and then remained in the Premier League for 5 years. Come on. Like, that's good enough for anyone to get. There's a reason he's been linked with jobs like Arsenal and Leicester and such in the past, because he's that good a manager. People ranted and raved about him, of course, down in England as one of the best young managers in the country, but you look at that journey, and perhaps between League 2 and the Championship, yes, they had a bit more financial backing than maybe the other sides around them did, but you can't take away the achievement that he done, that he made with Bournemouth. It's unbelievable. Back-to-back promotions, finishing top of the table, bringing the Championship trophy to Dean Court. He's a manager that has proven himself, and yes, they may have got relegated last season and seen themselves leave the Premier League, but it happens to the best of the clubs. And look, Bournemouth are always going to be a team who were meant to be relegation candidates. Look, their stadium was the smallest in the league, their financial backing was one of the smallest in the league. Ultimately, they weren't quite a Premier League club, but Eddie Howe himself made that happen. Right, the second reason, we can start talking a little more kind of, and a wee bit more intelligence behind the debate now, and a little bit more reasoning. We're going to talk about working under financial restraint. For Eddie Howe, this has been massive as Bournemouth manager. And of course, yes, I've touched on the fact that they may have had a little bit more money to spend in League 2, League 1, the Championship than other sides, but ultimately coming to Celtic means one thing: you're not getting to spend like a Premier League club. The attraction for Eddie Howe coming to Celtic is probably brought down a little bit by that. He has a chance to perhaps go to another Premier League team in his career now where he can go and spend upwards of £50 million a season, and at Celtic that's not going to happen. But we make up for that with the fact we have European football. There's a chance to win trophies. Brendan Rodgers has showed that the league is a very good place to fast track your career in a sense, and Steven Gerrard's now doing the same. There is a lot of positives for that one negative of maybe not getting a lot of money to spend, but for Eddie Howe it's not a worrying issue. Bournemouth had this misconception in the Premier League of being very rich, and having billionaire owners was thrown about sometimes. No, Bournemouth were the 17th richest club in the league, which if you work it out is the third or fourth, it's the fourth. They weren't laundered with tons of money. They weren't a financial superpower. He had restraints to work under, and you could see that in his signings. Yes, there's a couple of signings in there that were questionable, and a couple that he did spend big money on, but ultimately a lot of his signings were had to bring in for low fees. Loan deals were utilised. Free transfers were utilised. He's worked under the restraints before, and he could come up to Scotland, and I think with Celtic can work under those restraints again. I think he could do a good job with it. Now, his track record of signings looked very good at Bournemouth. Of course, every manager signs their duds. We've got to remember that. Brendan Rodgers, Neil Lennon, they've all had their fair share of duds at Celtic, and that goes across the whole of European football. I don't think there's a manager who's never made a bad signing, but I think he's a man who comes up here with a knowledge of players for the right level that come to Celtic, and I think he's got a team behind him that if he chooses to bring with him, or he could establish a new team that would be able to work under the financial restraint and bring in players of a suitable quality. For Celtic, business is key. And making profit on signings is key. You look at the past few years and what has been the kind of biggest moments for outs in the transfer window. Dembele leaving for £20 million, Tierney leaving for 25 million. You're looking to hope for the same with the likes of Edouard. You look at Armstrong, who went for 10 million quid. Celtic like to make profit. We like to sign players cheap and make a lot of profit. When you look at Eddie Howe's list of transfers, and I'll try and throw a graphic on screen now, his transfer business is significantly in the green. You look at players like Nathan Ake, who he brought in for a much lesser fee than what they were sold on for. Callum Wilson too. A lot of green you can see in there, and for Celtic that's spot on in terms of the business side of things, which has been very important the way Celtic's run over the past few years. There's no better man there, it seems, for how things work. I think he would love to bring in a lot of young talent, a lot of talent that's ready for this level, and sell them on for profit, and that kind of follows on with the kind of transfer policy Celtic have had over the past few years. Tactics, that's reason number 3. Tactics in football itself. Eddie Howe was, his Bournemouth side were a joy to watch at times in the Premier League, and of course in that last season they struggled a wee bit more, but I don't know why I've done that there. I was trying to reach the phone. Of course the last season they did get relegated, but they were known for coming up and wanting to play nice attacking football, and one thing about Eddie Howe was he was very adaptable. Knowing that he was going into a much stronger league year after year, Eddie Howe had to adapt. It wasn't a case of going to the next league, going to League One, going to the Championship, going to the Premier League and doing what they'd done the year before. They had to adapt. They had to overcome being, the kind of underdogs in the league, and they'd done it. And there's a reason he stayed in the Premier League for 5 years, and it wasn't through playing the same tactics. There's a brilliant video on YouTube, and I urge you to go and watch it, and it's from one game in particular. Eddie Howe's Bournemouth side went to Stamford Bridge and they won 3-0, and this was when Antonio Conte was in charge. Chelsea were flying, Chelsea were a brilliant side. They went on to win the Premier League, of course, with Antonio Conte, but they knew what they were coming up against, and they never had success against Antonio Conte's Chelsea in the past. And he went into the game with a couple of injuries in the side, and he talks about the way he had to adapt the team. As Ryan Fraser playing at a right wing back role in the game, he's adapting players to different areas, and a completely new tactic for the team. And he's playing with 3 narrow forwards too. And the way he's explaining it is brilliant. You'll find it on YouTube. Just type in Eddie Howe tactics, and it's brilliant. Listening to the man speak, he's clearly a man who knows his way about the game. Clearly a man who knows his way about a tactic, unlike the man who's at the helm right now for Celtic. We've been far too used to seeing him flip the wingers. We'll switch from 4-2-3-1 to the 3-5-2 over the past year. We need something fresh, and Eddie Howe brings that. I think that the quote that I've seen being described as Eddie Howe's football was glittered with excitement, free-flowing football with a lot of attacking impetus. This is a manager who's going to come in, play attacking football, which is, as some would say, the Celtic way, and he would succeed very well. Adapting in Europe, I think, would be good for Eddie Howe. I think he would be able to bring us forward a step. Look, I think on the pitch, he done enough at Bournemouth to show that it's going to be an exciting team to watch. Point number 4 is something that I think is very, very important for a Celtic manager to do. And it kind of links in with the point about the transfer policy that I brought up at number 2 and working under financial restraint. But this is a man who coached so many lower league level English players or lower league level players down in England and turned them into Premier League stars. There's players now in the Premier League who have made a name for themselves at Bournemouth. Nathan Ake being one of the prime examples with his move to Man City for 40 million quid. Callum Wilson, who came up through the leagues with Bournemouth, now at Newcastle, looked at as one of the best strikers in the Premier League over the past few years. He's scored goals. He's not quite the level of the best strikers, but he's up there as a really good striker, and there's a reason he's playing for Newcastle still in the Premier League despite Bournemouth's relegation. Lewis Cook, who was playing down in the lower leagues as well now there, Steve Cook, all these players that came up to the Premier League, let's focus on them. The guys like Adam Smith and Steve Cook and guys like that. You looked at them when they came to the Premier League and you automatically would think they're not good enough. But for 5 years under Eddie Howe, they've done a fantastic job in the Premier League, and they've done so well at coaching players into Premier League stars. And as I've already said, so many got moves onto Premier League clubs, and have done well for themselves since leaving Bournemouth. But it all kind of started with Eddie Howe. Now at Celtic, he's going to face the same sort of situation. He's going to have players who are kind of lower League England level, you could say English Championship, League One standard, when they first come into the club. But the chance for him to coach them into Premier League stars, that can take so little time because of how good a manager he is. You look at someone like David Turnbull, right? He's already at a great level, and I think he could play for a Premier League club if you ask me. But Eddie Howe can take David Turnbull to another level. Absolutely no question about it. Eddie Howe can turn bit part players at Celtic into key players, almost like what Brendan Rodgers done back in 2016. You remember what Callum McGregor was like when Rodgers came in? It was close to hopeless. Nobody really wanted McGregor to get a chance. Now he's the key man. He's the next captain. He's a man who's been Mr. Consistent up until this season for the last 3 years. He's been so relied on. He's played the most football of anyone, and that was down to Rodgers' coaching, taking him from a player that didn't look Celtic quality into one of the best in the league. Eddie Howe can do that. He can turn players from lower league level to Premier League level, and he's shown that time and time again, and he can do it at Celtic. Matt Ritchie's a prime example, and some people have split opinions on Matt Ritchie, and I don't think he's a world beater by any means, but he was signed when Bournemouth were in League One for £500,000 by Eddie Howe. And by the time he was finished, he left the club for £12 million to go to Newcastle. Newcastle fans had a period of time, I remember, where they ranted and raved about him. And he's a great wee player. When he's fit anyway, he's a fantastic player. And Eddie Howe took him from League One standard, £500,000, to a £12 million exit. And that's where it kind of links in with the transfer policy I was talking about earlier. He can turn players into stars. And I think that at Celtic he's got a lot of players there who are ready to become stars. Make it happen, man. Finally, the last point, it's Eddie Howe. Look, this is me answering the question very simply for people saying, what makes you think that Eddie Howe could be the man to turn it round? Look, it's Eddie Howe, that's it. And look, I'm always going to be cautious. I don't want to come out and, if he does get the job, that's wishful thinking, I still think, but if he does get the job, I'm not going to come out and go, Eddie Howe he's this messiah, he's going to go win the league, he's the best in the country and all the rest of it. I'm going to bite my lip this time, but look, you can't deny that on paper right now, him being appointed as Celtic manager would be a fantastic move, not just for the club right now, but for the future of the club. He could help lay a lot of foundations, almost like Brendan Rodgers done, without it being destroyed by Neil Lennon. Eddie Howe can come in and do it, and of course, Celtic would be a stepping stone for Eddie Howe, but he knows, he comes here, he does what Rodgers done, he wins a few trophies, he makes a good account of himself in Europe, he's in with a shout of getting Leicester, he's in with a shout of getting Arsenal, he's in with a shout of getting those sort of jobs down in England again, and honestly, I don't mind. I just want somebody to come in, bring a new regime to the club, get players fit, and Eddie Howe's going to do that. His players were fit as a fiddle at Bournemouth. He took players once again from League One, League Two standard who weren't quite the fittest guys in the world to Premier League fitness levels. Now that is what we need at Celtic. We need a complete overhaul, and Eddie Howe, I'm telling you, is the man to lead that. So let me know your opinions in the comments below, and that is it all from me today. Eddie Howe, please, just make it happen, Celtic, somehow. Like and subscribe, follow on Twitch for more live streams, and I'll see you all next time.